My next patron question is from Billy, who wanted to know about a specific aspect of Hollywood movies. My next question might be similar to the one you did on Disney, but I feel it's a topic to discuss. Since the start of the decade, I've been noticing a trend of movies focusing on nostalgia by bringing back characters. It made me think about this after seeing the new Beetlejuice trailer. Do you think Hollywood is focusing too much on nostalgia, and why so? Like Billy mentioned, a few years ago I did a video on Disney and how tapping into people's nostalgia seems to figure heavily into the projects they greenlight. But Disney is hardly alone in going into that back catalog to see which movies they can bring back with a sequel or remake. And while it seems like a recent trend in Hollywood, it actually dates back decades. For example, studios in the 90s seemed to greenlight a lot of movies based on properties from the 1960s. A part of that was likely because of filmmakers and executives who'd grown up on them and wanted to revive those properties. For example, Steven Spielberg, who was a teenager when the Flintstones first aired, played a major role in bringing the live-action movie to the screen. The film's director, Brian Levant, was 8 when the Flintstones premiered and was said to be a huge fan of the show, which led to his hiring. Another case was with The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, which was a passion project for Robert De Niro. Yes, really. De Niro had a lot of good memories of the show and produced it himself, having always wanted to play fearless leader. Other examples from this period are movies based on the Beverly Hillbillies and Wild Wild West, a sequel to The Odd Couple, and remakes of The Nutty Professor and The Thomas Crown Affair. Shortly after this, the 70s became popular to look for material from, and now we're at a point where 90s and even early 2000s nostalgia is prevalent, although the 80s also continues to be a popular decade. Do all these new sequels or remakes hit? No, but some do, especially if they can attract the audience that was not even born yet. I remember before Top Gun Maverick was released, thinking that while it would likely appeal to those who saw the original movie in theaters back in 1986 and continue to rewatch it on video, would newer generations born afterwards be interested? Well, it turned out they were, and the movie even attracted those who had never even seen the first one. You also have properties that never went away and continue to interest people. The Super Mario Bros. Movie was enormously successful because it appealed to those who first played the original game and children enjoying them now. The filmmakers picked from multiple eras of the franchise for inspiration and created something that every generation could get into. Of course, you did have those who felt the film was just empty nostalgia, taking the familiar elements of the Mario games and mixing them together with the bare minimum of a story. To be honest, I'm not sure what else an incredibly faithful film adaptation of the Super Mario games would have looked like. Similar complaints were thrown at Ghostbusters Afterlife, accusing it of just being a bunch of Easter eggs and references. Personally, I don't think having the Ecto-1, a Slimer-like ghost, and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man were necessarily going for fan service. Those are just core ingredients of the franchise, although I understand people complaining that the third act somewhat repeated the first film. As Billy mentioned, a major trend now is making a decades-later sequel that brings back as many of the original actors as possible. Top Gun Maverick, the new Ghostbusters movie, and the upcoming Beetlejuice sequel all fall into this. The feeling is that the audience wants to catch up with these characters and find out what they've been up to. And of course, there'll also be a new character or two who is either a family member or someone dealing with some of the same shenanigans that their predecessors did. There is a formula to these, and while it was not the first to do this, I guess The Force Awakens is the film that a lot of them pattern after. We have the new characters we follow, but then Han Solo and Princess Leia were also incorporated into the story in significant roles. J.J. Abrams used a lot of iconography from the original trilogy, and while I do love the film, yes, the plot points are rather similar to Episode 4. I even remember thinking, hold on a moment, seeing the movie for the first time when we get to its variation of the Death Star battle. But I do think part of this comes from a genuine and sincere adoration for the earlier films and wanting to recapture that magic. Although I also dug what The Last Jedi did, which played about expectations a bit. We saw Luke Skywalker do plenty of impressive things with the Force, but the story also tapped into how we perceive the past and the lessons we take from it. But the truth is, there is often a demand for these sequels. There are a lot of people who want DreamWorks to make a 5th Shrek movie, and I'm positive when that is eventually released, it'll be a humongous hit. And then other times they bring something back and the audience responds with disinterest. That happens too. I myself admit to being confused about the upcoming new Tron movie. Disney apparently thinks there's enough of an audience who wants to see a new Tron, but without the characters or continuing the storylines from the prior two films. It'll be interesting to see how viewers respond to that. Thank you for your question, Billy.